The seemingly endless rain of past weeks has caused its share of misery for all, but the Salvation Army says that more rain could mean the difference between sickness and health, perhaps even life and death. Low rental dwellings and abandoned squats once kept the rain off the city's homeless kids and derelicts, but the earthquake abruptly changed that. This was one refuge for teenagers on the run. Now it could be a death trap. Salvation Army Captain Stan Hindle says there are many more derelict buildings like this throughout the city.
Well, it should be completely boarded off and not allowed access by anyone at all because it's too dangerous.
Do you think people are still using it?
Oh, definitely, definitely.
The problem is on a wider scale. The former George Hotel once served as emergency accommodation. It was demolished after the quake, and the neighbouring Great Northern Hotel is now booked out. Men's and women's refuges are also reporting capacity crowds each evening. Many of the Salvation Army's own buildings are damaged, adding to the looming crisis.
Well, in the city at the moment, in the CBD area particularly, there's no accommodation available with hotels and social institutions booked out nightly. There's no places for young people to go with the loss of our youth shelter, where we housed 220 young people last year, and then we've housed no one at all this year and referred them out to other refuges which are now full.
Captain Hindle says the Apex Club has donated more than $40,000 to help the Salvos find new buildings, but he believes it could take another $60,000 to buy an inner-city premises to provide emergency accommodation where it's needed. In the meantime, Newcastle's homeless continue to walk the streets and hope the rain will ease up. This was the colourful and optimistic official launch of the Castle Classic, a fun rally from Newcastle to Cairns, which organisers hoped would raise $500,000 for the Royal New South Wales Institute for Deaf and Blind Children and the Lord Mayor's earthquake appeal. They envisaged up to 60 cars heading north in mid-July, but the rally's first obstacle appears to be insurmountable. The rally tripped over this brochure. The Variety Club of Australia says that up to 6 pages of entry conditions for the Castle Classic have been lifted directly from its own Red X Bash booklet, and that breaches copyright.
We concede that we have unfortunately infringed upon the copyright of the Variety Club Bash. It was unintentional, it wasn't done maliciously. I think the problem was that they initially felt that we had cocked our noses at them, so to speak, and done it without their approval. But I think they now realise that that wasn't the case.
The Variety Club says the Red X Bash has inspired many others, but none are an exact copy of their event. A spokesman has offered to help the Newcastle organisers draw up a different set of rules. In the meantime, they say the charity groups nominated for the Castle Classic can apply for funding through the Red X Bash with good chances of recognition. In the meantime, the Castle Classic has gone back to the drawing board.
We've got more time now to do it properly. We have already rewritten the rules and regulations. Basically, that's where the infringement of copyright occurred with the specifications of the motor vehicles. We have rewritten them, and it will be going in a different form, perhaps mid-late April next year.
That victory by Australia's Pat Cash in '87 is a driving force behind Ivan Lendl's quest for the elusive All-England Championship. It was the one he was expected to win, and it got away from him. And it's not as though he can't perform on grass, as Lendl has been to the semi-finals 4 times and the decider twice. But he is craving for the one major crown he hasn't got his name on. Lendl's coach Tony Roach has built 4 grass courts at his resort at Salamander Bay, and the world's #1 is in our area to begin his road to victory. On a court that was in remarkable shape despite the continuous rain, Lendl was put through his paces by Roach and David Graham. In an hour-long session, only one of many leading to Wimbledon.
He's here until the end of the month, and then he goes back to Connecticut where they're expecting their first child. I'll go over a week later, and he's got some grass courts there ready to practice on, and then as soon as the baby's born and the courts open in England, we'll be off to England.
Ivan is quite happy with his early preparation and his new Mizuno racket.
Well, it's just the first week, and It has been raining quite a bit, but since we have so much time, it's not that bad as if we had only 10 days and it was raining 5 times. It seems to play very well on grass, and I still don't know the racket all that well because I played with the other racket for about 12 years, so it will take a little time.
Next Thursday, Ivan Lendl will take on 3 legends of grass tennis courts of the world, John Newcombe, Ken Rosewell and Tony Roach, in an exhibition 5-set singles match with the veterans alternating. And in Sports Centre Sunday tomorrow morning, we talk to Lendl and Tony Roach in depth. The tournament that everyone dreams of winning has so far eluded the world's #1 player, Ivan Lendl. He's been to the semi-finals 4 times and made the final twice, and in 1987 it was an Australian who stole the coveted trophy from him. You don't become the best player in the world without a lot of hard work, and there's probably only a handful of current players that put in anywhere near the amount of training that Lendl does. And the Czechoslovakian superstar is going to great lengths to add Wimbledon to his vast array of titles. He is currently at Tony Roach's racket resort for intensive practice on the 4 grass courts Roach has had built at Salamander Bay. When he's hard at it on the court, Lendl is a little reluctant to break his concentration, but did take time out to say he's happy with the start of the long haul to Wimbledon.
Ivan, how has the preparation been so far in the build-up to Wimbledon? Obviously you haven't had too much time on the grass, but today you're able to get on.
Well, it's just the first week, and it has been raining quite a bit, but since we have so much time, it's not that bad as if we had only 10 days and it was raining 5 times.
You've changed gear. You're using now the Mizuno racket from the old Adidas. How are you finding the changeover?
It seems to play very well on grass, and I still don't know the racket all that well because I played with the other racket for about 12 years, so it will take a little time.
On Thursday, you're coming up against 3 men who certainly know their way around the centre court of Wimbledon, John Newcombe, Ken Rosewell and Tony Roach. That should be very, very interesting, plus a big buzz.
Well, it should be fun, and I hope everybody will enjoy it as much as we will.
What about playing John Newcombe and Ken Rosewell? Any special message for those two?
Not really. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I hope I can win.
All the very best.
Thanks.
Tony Roach has been Ivan Lendl's coach for a few years now, and he is dedicating much of his time preparing the champion for his tilt at destiny.
We've been a little disappointed with the weather, but whenever we do get on the court, he's worked hard. We've had 3 good hard days so far, and yeah, he's keen, and I think the main thing for him is the way he moves on grass, and we're doing a lot of drills where he's got to anticipate the next shot, and I think that's where it's got to be instinct for him. He doesn't have to think about it, and that's what we're trying to get the message across.
On Thursday coming, he's playing 3 people that certainly know their way around the grass courts of Wimbledon, John Newcombe, Ken Rosewell and yourself. What sort of preparation can you 3 give Ivan?
Well, I think on grass that we can certainly give him a match. When I mentioned it to Nuke, he said he was immediately going into training. He fancied himself, he always fancied himself winning on grass, so there's no difference there. And Kenny's coming up a couple of days beforehand to practice, so you know, the fighting spirit's always there. We believe that we can still win, even if you're playing the #1 player in the world.
Tony, you seem here in practice today to be hitting the ball pretty well yourself.
Yeah, not bad if I can get to it.
So the desire for Ivan, is it something that's really chewing away at him?
Well, I think, you know, when you consider that he's won everything in tennis except Wimbledon, which happens to be the most prestigious tournament to win. So, and, you know, he's 30 years of age. It's not like he's got a lot of time on his hands. So I think the next 3 years he wants to give himself every chance to take out the big one.
There's been a question over the years of his serve and volley game. That's what you need to win Wimbledon?
Oh yes, I mean, Borg actually won Wimbledon by staying back, but the players today, like the Edbergs and the Beckers and the Cashes and the McEnroes, really don't allow you to stay on the baseline. So it's got to be serve and volley. You know, with the rackets that they're using today, they're hitting with tremendous power. And of course, you know, Ivan's been close. I mean, he's 4-time semi-finalist and twice runner-up. So, you know, he's been close. And of course, to win a big one, you need the breaks. You need to get a little bit lucky here and there, such as Becker was last year when Ivan actually had him on the ropes and the rain came, and you know, Becker came back and he was good enough to take advantage of that. So that's the sort of breaks that you need to win.
What sort of pressure is applied to a person when they go to the Wimbledon or the All England Tennis Club to play the championship?
Well, it's I think probably playing Davis Cup and playing at Wimbledon, you can't get anything more pressure than playing in those two events. And I always figure that if you can, a player such as Ivan, the danger for him is to get through the first week. You know, there are a lot of dangerous floaters around and you're always a little bit nervous. You're not sure how you're going to play in those opening rounds. So it's important that you get some good matches under your belt going into the second week. Once you get into that second week, anything can happen.
And of course the dangers are going to be the Beckers and the Edbergs again.
Well, I think so. I think when you look at, there's 128 start out, but really there's only 4 or 5 that have got a chance of winning, and of course they're the ones that we've mentioned.
What's Ivan's format from here on?
Well, he's going to stay on grass the whole time now. He's here until the end of the month, and then he goes back to Connecticut where they're expecting their first child. I'll go over a week later, and he's got some grass courts there ready to practice on, and then as soon as the baby's born and the courts open in England, we'll be off to England.
So that'll be a great incentive for Ivan, not only win the championship for himself, but his pretty new family.
Yeah, that's right. New ball game for him.
Over 100 competitors took part in the first day's competition of the Hunter Valley Taekwondo Championships, which is being conducted on a round-robin basis. And there were no hiding spots as the combatants threw feet and fist at their foes. The judges looked for technique as well as aggressiveness, and that was in big supply in the bout between Red Miller Janik and Joanne Cross, both of the Newcastle club. Joanne landed a great blow to the chest of Red Miller, which resulted in a standing count. But Red Miller fought back strongly, and when the judges had made up their minds, it was Red Miller who got the decision. All grades are taking part, and the next round of the tournament will be in October. But there was more in store than just the competition. Experts in their field, Ross Murphy and Steve Tran, thrilled the large crowd with demonstrations that should not be tried at home. Murphy began with a pattern, a series of coordinated moves that he has perfected over many years of intense training. 4 times national champion Steve Tran took the William Tell demo to new heights, using the lethal nunchucks as his weapon. The poor old apples didn't stand a chance. Then Dave Ballard, a youngster from Cronulla, was the guinea pig as Steve, blindfolded and with sword in hand, made some delicate cuts with absolute precision. We repeat, don't try this at home. To cap off the display, Ross Murphy set an unofficial world record with this 5.5-foot jump through a fire tunnel, cracking a board at the completion. A full visual wrap of the demonstration and the championship in Sports Centre Sunday next week.
Any hero can tell you we face a very serious problem.
What problem? Drugs, bud. Your brain must be like really messed up.
This program was television's effort to rescue children from drug abuse before they're in real danger. The estimated audience at schools, community centers, and homes nationwide, 20 million kids.
It's me. This is my future.
It is if you don't get off those drugs.
Daffy Duck joining forces with Miss Piggy, Alf, Garfield, and Bugs Bunny.
A joint? So what's the big attraction?
For kids in this age group we're aiming at, which is more or less 5 to 11, these characters are the Barbara Streisands and Robert Redfords of their age group, and they are characters they listen to and pay attention to.
The program's backers say there is no way of knowing now if they made a real difference to their young audience. But maybe in a few years, when faced with a tough choice, they'll remember what their heroes told them.
There's nothing cool about a fool on drugs.
Ned Potter, ABC News, New York.
Last week, member for Swansea Ivan Welsh announced a community summit to look at hooliganism in Lake Macquarie. Today, member for Newcastle George Keegan said he too would be addressing the problem in the inner city.
Old legislation was modified under this new Summary Offences Act, which quite frankly I think leaves the police short of the certain amount of powers they need. They can't deal with street kids, they can't deal with alcoholics and drunks, and all they can do is sort of snap them into line and talk to them.
Mr Keegan last night joined police in a crackdown on late night revelry in the city. He says he's amazed at what he saw.
Well, a major problem is the number of people, young fellows, urinating in the streets. That's pretty bad in its own thing, the amount of drugs that's there, and also just the general total disorder of the young people of the community, and the excess of alcohol. That, to me, is horrific. I'm not a moralist by any stretch of imagination. I've been around for a long time and I've seen a lot of things in my life, but Newcastle is deteriorating at an alarming rate.
Around 30 police were involved in the operation, which targeted underage drinking and drink driving. 16 of the 46 charges laid last night were for PCA offences. According to police, there is a problem in the city centre and they intend to clean it up.
Well, the police are concerned about the hoodlum activity in the town, mainly from drinking and late hours in the morning and things like that, and we're terribly concerned about that in the streets.
Because of the success of last night's operation, the crackdown is set to continue over the next few months.
Falcons coach Ken Cole took his kids on the most difficult road trip in the National Basketball League, the Doomsday Double to Adelaide and Perth. Hoping for at least one victory and confident of two, the Falcons came up short in a big way. The Adelaide 36ers extracted revenge for a rare defeat by the Falcons last year with a whopping 33-point thrashing on Friday night, with Mark Davis and Mike Mackay doing the damage. With that out of the way, it was time to front the Perth Wildcats, spurred on by 9,000 screaming sandgropers. The Falcons started well, with Lazard slamming in a fierce dunk, and at the other end, Mike Ellis steadied the ship for Perth, despite some roughhouse tactics by Peter Hill. Ahead by 5 at quarter time, the Falcons looked pretty good, but along came James Crawford and Tiny Pinder to turn the match Perth's way. Some woeful refereeing decisions didn't help the Falcons' cause, and tech fouls flowed like Wildcat points, and it was all over in a flash, Perth by 22 points. Claude Williams took his Newcastle Hunters on the road to Adelaide for 3 matches, and he also came home with a bare cupboard, down by 31 to Adelaide, 16 to Nord and 7 to Woodville. But the sorry sporting tale didn't finish there, as the superbly led Gene Miles' Brisbane Broncos rode into town and shot up the armour of the Knights. In front of 23,195 fans who had witnessed the Parramatta whitewash the week before, it wasn't long before they realised they were in for a long afternoon again. From the start, the Newcastle defence up the middle was non-existent, and Miles, Langer and Shearer had plenty of space to set up Broncos' attacking moves. Without 6 internationals in the team due to injury, it was a second-string outfit that tore holes through the blue and reds. Replacement fullback Paul Hoff, who was 6'6", would be as comfortable on a basketball court as on a rugby league paddock, scored 3 tries in a classy first-grade debut. Brisbane were able to keep the ball alive, something that the Knights were either under instructions not to do or weren't capable of doing. When they did release the ball, they made some super breaks, with Ashley Gordon scoring a great try. Coach Alan McMahon wouldn't be interviewed today, preferring to duck questions regarding the Knights' predictable style of play, which doesn't allow for a great deal of backline involvement, something that Parramatta and Brisbane have exploited in rattling up 51 points to the Knights' 4. Next Saturday's match against the Balmain Tigers is a televised game, and the following Sunday's match against St George is also a televised game. And there will be a lot of interest centred on whether the Knights begin to change their pattern of play from the 4s to the whole 13 members of the team. Miller was included in referee Bill Harrigan's match report after yesterday's 28-4 loss to the Brisbane Broncos. After viewing videotape of the clash between Miller and Terry Madison, League General Manager John Quayle has decided Miller has a case to answer. The charge that Glenn has been hit with is attacking the head of Brisbane lock Terry Madison.
Since money began flowing into the earthquake appeal, rumours have abounded concerning Council's involvement in the administration and distribution of the funds. Today, Alderman Ashley Saunders called on Council to employ an external auditor to allay those fears.
I think the problem is with the public's perception, and that's why I think it's important that right now Council bring in some auditors and say, listen, inspect the books and then give us a report and make that report public, which says that not only have you looked at the books, but that Council is not using the funds for its own purposes.
To date, 94 payments have been made, a total of $66,000 handed out, hardly making a dent in the $6.5 million poured into the fund. Alderman Saunders says the lack of activity has the community talking. He says there's even concern Council is pocketing the interest.
But simply it relates to either the fact that Council is using the funds for its own purposes, or that individuals within the Council, whether elected or otherwise, are using the fund or have access to it, and even one that is being used for political purposes. Now, what is feeding that, I think, is the lack of communication about the fund itself, and the people don't see it being used.
According to Alderman Saunders, the cost of the auditor would be borne by Council.
I see no problems with that being borne by Council, and I don't think we're talking about lots of money. In terms of the sort of work that's required, we're not talking about extravagant amounts at all. I think it's not only responsible but appropriate that it be done and the Council pay for the audit.
The Vanley Caravan project, which operates out of Newcastle University, helps around 460 families living in caravan parks in the Hunter region.
If the families are living in caravan parks, sometimes they are new to the area and they don't know what's available in the community, and also sometimes they're lacking transportation and the mothers will be at home with the children and are isolated and cannot use the community services even if they know that they're there.
The scheme is unique in Australia and is funded through the Vanley Foundation in Holland. Today, 10 members of the team met Catherine Greiner to explain how the project operates.
In the future, I would imagine that there's going to be a lot more families living permanently in caravan parks. So we see a great need for the continuation of this project and also the starting of other projects such as this to assist those people that live in them.
Last year, Family and Community Services granted the project $50,000 to begin a Home Start program in East Lake Macquarie. Today, nearly a year after its inception, the third group of volunteers graduated from a 10-week training program which prepares them to assist and support struggling families. According to Mrs. Greiner, Home Start could become the blueprint for a statewide family support scheme.
I would think it would have great hope to be implemented elsewhere. It's obviously being monitored now. It's to its great credit, it's achieved an enormous amount in just really 1 year's worth of standing in the community. So I would say that it would have tremendous opportunity to be replicated right around the state and indeed around the country.
But the scheme can only operate with the help of volunteers.
They're the basis of our program. If we didn't have the volunteers, there'd be no help for these particular families. So they're crucial, and that's why it's really important that we have ceremonies like today where we give credit, I suppose, to the work that they've done.